Welcome to Great Players of the Past class. This class will be on the British player Joseph Henry Blackburne. Probably not top 5 in the world, but definitely top 5 in interesting. And actually, I was trying to figure out who to talk about today, and I looked at the cross table from Hastings 1895 because there's a lot of good choices there. And I try not to do the world champions if I can avoid it, although sometimes I do. And I was like, oh, Blackburne, I remember him. So that's how old I am. Anyway, Blackburne died, I believe, at the age of 82, and he played chess, according to this, for, what'd you say, 55 years? Yeah. And that's funny. Usually when I have different pictures on different websites of my subject, they're really different, and here they're like almost the same. Like this picture here and this picture here look like the same guy. I've never had that happen. Like that old school chess set. So he played a lot of games, a lot of matches. He played a lot of tournaments. He won a lot of tournaments. And basically, from the 1860s to the 19-teens, he was playing in tournaments. And in fact, he won games against Steinitz and Lasker, although, he didn't usually beat them. And in fact, he beat Lasker, I believe, when he was 58, when Blackburne was 58. So that's pretty good. And basically, the reason I like Blackburne isn't because he was a good player or he beat good players. There's a couple of things I like about him. He learned chess late, and according to the internets, if you go to Wikipedia, of course, you can see a big article about him. There's pictures of other chess players in his Wikipedia article. According to the internet, he learned chess very late. He started playing at the age of 18, and the reason he started playing was because of Morphy. He was like, wow, that Morphy guy's pretty good. Let me play chess too. In fact, he played a match with Steinitz about a year or two after he learned how to play chess, but that didn't go very well. Then he played a match with Steinitz again. That went even worse. But yeah, I like his nickname, the Black Death, so you can't argue with that. And I learned a lot about Blackburne just reading the biography on Wikipedia and all the tournaments he played in and famous exhibitions. And I didn't realize this silly gambit that almost loses by force for black is also named after Blackburne. I didn't realize that. He played chess forever and ever. He played and lived a lot longer than most people. And this is his tournament results. You can see he played chess for a million years. And, he came in the top 3 or 4 in a lot of tournaments where there were a lot of strong players. And he was British champion several times, of course. And he lost matches against Steinitz and Zukertort. He did win a match against Gunsberg. And he actually beat Zukertort in a match when Zukertort was about to die. That was his only hope. And he drew a match in the same year as Hastings with Kurt von Bardeleben. And I've talked about von Bardeleben, but maybe I'll do a class about him because von Bardeleben obviously is known for losing to Steinitz and Hastings, but he actually was having a good tournament before that game. So he was a pretty good player. I think he was a German player, von Bardeleben. Okay, well, the Blackburne's interesting because of his games. Okay, and they're not the highest quality, and the opening play may not be what it is today, but Blackburne didn't back down, and I really like some of his games. So this game, his opponent played something really funny that my brother and I have talked about often, which is bishop takes f7 check. And this is known as the Jerome Gambit, although I don't know why, but there's actually a website about the Jerome Gambit. And my brother and I talk about the Jerome Gambit sometimes. This is actually the only famous game in the Jerome Gambit, because Blackburne was black. Otherwise, if you see the Jerome Gambit, it's Rufus versus Doofus, and I'm being nice. There must be somebody who's much worse than Rufus and Doofus. Okay, so white sacrifices 2 pieces, and actually, you probably would see this game more in a scholastic tournament where the players are total beginners than, Okay, but of course, white is the very prolific player, NN. Played in a lot of tournaments, yeah. Okay, queen h5 check, of course, attacking everything. Now, Blackburne, other than being a funny player and a good player, was a very funny annotator. And he actually annotated this game. And he wrote, this is called the Kentucky Opening. So, favored by certain players. Okay, so Blackburne, in this position, played the very suspicious d6. And he wrote, not to be outdone in generosity. So even though white's giving all of his pieces away, Blackburne decided he would as well. So white took the rook. And black played queen h4, threatening f2. And white castled. And he played knight f6. This is a very interesting position because white's up in exchange in 2 pawns, which is very funny since white sacrificed 2 pieces. but white's queen is sort of trapped, and black is threatening knight g4. And as we've pointed out in a lot of Morphy, games and exhibitions, people 150 years ago didn't defend as well as we do now. Okay, so you could have an attack that shouldn't really work, and it would often work. Okay, so if I was white here, I would try to get my queen out, or maybe I would play d4 so my bishop can get out, or maybe I would develop a piece. So I don't think I could go there because I'm sort of worried about knight g4. But he played c3, and that's a bit slow because, black's trying to attack and white's trying to play c3, d4. Now, if this game was played today and it was a boring position, c3, d4 would be normal, but everybody's sacrificing all their pieces, so c3 is a little slow. Okay, knight g4, that's a pretty big attack there. So if it's black's move, obviously we're threatening, checkmate in 2 or 3 and checkmate in 1. So c3 was a pretty silly move. Okay, h3. Bishop takes f2 check and king h1. Okay, and this is really brilliant what he did now, and that's actually why I'm showing the class this. Hey, keep it down back there. This is why I'm showing the class this position, because here Blackburne showed what a strong player he was. He found a really beautiful mate, and it's not a forced mate, but it's a forced win. So as Morphy has taught all of us, especially back in the 1880s when they remembered who Morphy was, you have to use all of your pieces to attack. And obviously, black hasn't used these pieces at all. And I tell my students this, they're never going to listen to me, but you could listen at home because you're not my student. When you have the 2 bishops, which black does, one of your bishops has no counterpart, which obviously would be the white squared bishop. White doesn't have a white squared bishop. Coincidentally, white's king is on a white square. So we have a white squared bishop. Our opponent has a king on a white square, and he has no white squared bishop. That means we could try to get him. Now, obviously, bishops move diagonally. You knew that, right? Even the class knew that. Therefore, we want our bishop on this diagonal, checking the king. You might think that's illegal. However, if I could do it, it would be mate. If I could check you on that diagonal, I would win. So that's exactly what he did. He played bishop f5. Okay, and the idea is I'm attacking your queen because your queen's attacked. And where's your queen going to go? See, the audience is really quiet because there's nowhere to go. The only move to save your queen is, there's only one move. And both of you can see it. I know you can do it.
We take the rook.
You have to take the rook. You have to, right. Okay, and now we open up that diagonal by removing the defender. There's 2 pawns on that diagonal. We're going to remove one this way. How do we remove this one? We make it move. Make that pawn move. You can do it. But both of you.
Queen takes h3.
Yeah, what would Dave say? Why are you sacrificing? No, he'd say good. Yeah, queen h3. And then you have to take it, and then checkmate.
Yeah.
I never get to do that. I'm never down a queen and a rook and I mate my opponent. What I like about that game is white sacrificed 2 pieces and then Blackburne sacrificed all of his pieces. Okay, but all of his pieces are attacking, and white, as is typical with a lot of Morphy games, has got this going on. It's not too good. So that game was very suspicious. That's why white's name was NN. But yeah, I never get to beat anybody like that. But when you look at games from the 1800s, you get to see some good stuff. Okay, now a game that was, whoops. I did everything right. The game that was played earlier, and this was in a blindfold simul. Now Karen, who edits the videos, she loves giving blindfold simuls. That's actually why some of the videos show up later than others. When she's editing the video, she has to pause the camera because she goes in the other room and gives a blindfold simul. That's the reason. Yeah. Then when she's done beating everybody, then she comes back and edits. Okay, so Blackburne was very interested in simuls and blindfold simuls when he saw people doing it. He's like, I want to do that. So as far as I remember, if I read correctly, Blackburne was playing 3 people at once, blindfolded, and this was, and I'm playing NN. So again, don't think his opponent's not going to play too good. But if you can play 3 games blindfold simultaneously, we should look at your games. Now I've played 6, and I've done it a couple times, but usually I'm winning in a very boring fashion, not like a game like this, which was really interesting. Okay, so it's 1863, so I don't want to hear about the opening. Okay, sacks everything. And let's see who the smartest in my class is. There's a lot of people here too. What's the name of this opening?
Smith Mora?
Very close. I like the way you agreed with her. That was good. So if this was here, you'd be right. The Smith Mora is a Sicilian.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, E4. This is E4, E5. See, and I wrote a book on the Smith Mora, and my wife's like Smith Mora. Yeah. Okay, so no, this is actually. I'll give you a hint. I'll give you one hint. Bent Larson. Good hint. Where was he from? Even though he didn't live there, he was from there. No? Nobody? Okay, I'll give you another hint. That's a bad hint. I can't give you too many other hints. You've never heard of anybody from this country except him. Wow. I'm trying to think of a grandmaster you've heard of from this country that's not him, and I can't. I could name grandman. You haven't heard of them, though. You've heard of Bent Larson, right? You know what country he was from? Well, the thing is, due to certain things that happened during the war, he lived in South America most of his life. But he was from Denmark. He was called, his nickname was the Great Dane. I guess I could do a Larson lecture. Anyway, this is called the Danish Gambit. That's the name of it. You play D4, you play C3, you give everything away. Okay, and NN played D6, which is not a move. You take on B2 is the right move. Okay. And okay, there's good compensation for a pawn. White has nice development. Okay, knight e5 is ridiculous, but it's a blindfold simul, so leave me alone. Okay, that's an absurd move, because white has a very simple tactic now, which you can both find.
Bishop X, F7.
Right, okay, and then black only has one move that makes any sense. You got two legal moves. One loses your queen, one doesn't.
King E7.
King E7, right. Okay, and the game goes on, but obviously on move 8, you don't want to have your king on E7, all your pieces are undeveloped. That's sort of silly. Okay, material's equal to. Okay, check, knight F6 is forced. And now white played, drum roll, queen H5, because the knight's pinned. Now white doesn't want to trade queens, because black's king is very suspicious. But if he moves his queen to a random square, his bishop's hanging. So he defended his bishop. Maybe queen b3 makes more sense, but it's a blindfold simul, so give the guy a break. Okay, c6, again, a very slow move considering the issues, but I think he was afraid of knight d5 check because the knight's pinned. So, okay, c6. Rook d1 makes sense. Queen a5 makes sense. f4, rawr. Now remember, white's giving a blindfold simul, but he's attacking pretty well. It's a pretty good attack. Queen c5, takes, castles. Man, I thought Morphy used all his pieces to attack, and I guess Blackburne learned from that. And this looked like one of Morphy's opponents. Very suspicious. Yeah. Okay. H6. Bishop E8. Bishop E8's a really nice move in a blindfold simul. We're threatening queen F7 mate. Not easy to stop. And considering the way the guy played earlier, I'm surprised that he, Okay. So he played bishop E6, which stops the mate. Rook takes F6. Now, in a blindfold simul, that's pretty good. I give the guy credit.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the reason for rook takes F6 is very complicated. But basically, we're doing all kinds of removing the defender. We're removing all the defenders. So all these moves are checkmate, except this bishop on E6 is stopping them all. Because the knight's pinned, right? So this is checkmate except for bishop takes. And this is checkmate except for bishop takes. So white decided to sack all of his pieces so he could chase the king around the board. He took, then he played rook d7 check. There's only one legal move.
Bishop takes.
Then he can get his queen f7. Now there's two legal moves, but this one's pretty bad. Because queen takes bishop is mate on d7, so he went here. Now there's one legal move. I like analyzing this when I'm white because there's one legal move for my opponent. So I'm pretty good at that. Now here there's more than one legal move, but queen d4 doesn't make a lot of sense. So he's going to either move his king here or here. And even without analyzing all the way to the end, you know you're going to win because black's king is walking up the board. That's no good. Okay, king b4, check, king here. Now what did he do? It was really nice what he did here. I mean, it was just beautiful. And in fact, I've solved this puzzle on like Tactics Trainer on the internet, but I didn't know this was a Blackburne game. I thought it was just... Yeah. And Blackburne says, I announced mate in 3 here. If you guys were giving a blindfold style, you would also announce mate in 3. You'd be like, oh, mate in 3. I'm not. And by the way, for those of you who are confused, which is most of you, it was standard practice in the 1800s that you announced mate. You didn't actually play it. You didn't say like you just said I mate in 4 and then the game ended. Yeah, very suspicious. So, well, Black's king doesn't have a lot of squares to go to. I think it has 0. But if you check Black, you can't safely check him. If you check the king on any of the normal squares, then you're going to get captured. Okay? But if Black keeps capturing your pieces, that smothers his king. See, if Black puts his pieces near his king, he can't move his king. So Blackburn announced b4 check. Black has 1 legal move.
Bishop take.
Right. Then he played bishop b6 check. Black has 1 legal move.
Okay.
And now white has mate in 1.
Queen take rook.
Mate. Yeah. And that's because he made Black put his pawn here and his bishop here, so he can't escape. That's pretty good. So again, I say this every lecture, so you're probably getting tired of it, but Dave Vest is in here, so you're happy. So a lot of the top players today will diss the players from a long time ago. And they'll say, oh yeah, they were about 2200 strength. The guys who were good 150 years ago. I know a lot of 2200s. They can't play 1 game blindfold. If they played 3 games blindfold, they would forget on move 5. And if they didn't and remembered all the moves in all the games, they would still lose all of them. This guy's playing blindfold several games, and he's announcing mate, and he's sacking all his pieces. So I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear Morphy was no good. I don't want to hear Steinitz was no good, although I say Steinitz was no good, but I don't want to hear from you. And I don't want to hear Lasker was no good. I don't want to hear Zukertort was no good. Okay, you guys think guys are no good. I've seen all you play in tournaments. Right? You guys don't know you're in check. You forget to hit your clock. You don't know what the time control is. You don't know when the next round is. You don't know how many points you have. You don't know what the prizes are. You don't know where the tournament is. And you have GPS. You still can't find it. And you're telling me these guys aren't good at chess. Okay, you've been yelled at properly. Right? And my audience agrees. Okay. Okay, next. Now, I kept showing you NN versus NN, and you guys were like, I have a question. You guys at home? Why is Blackburne beating NN? Why can't he beat somebody good? All right, I hear you. So after showing you NN, let's show you Blackburne beating Steinitz when Steinitz was the world champion. Is that okay? People. Okay, this was played in London. So this is way before the 1895 tournament. Okay, E4, E5, as every game was in 1883. Okay, and Blackburne has a white. And Steinitz played G6, which... Man, I can't believe in 1883 Steinitz is playing G6. I mean, it's okay. It's just not really an 1800s kind of move. Okay. And this game wasn't the highest level, but it's pretty good so far. I'm not complaining yet. Yeah. They're coming in droves to see my lecture. They can't believe it. Okay, so castles. And this looks like a game that could be played today. It looks, I mean, maybe not super GMs, but, you know, IMs. Yeah. Okay, so here, he played knight e7. Now, from what I read on the internet, so you know it's true, this game was analyzed and looked at a lot by Reshevsky. He liked this game. And he was like, knight e7, what kind of move is that? So it seems like after rook e8, which is a normal move, then, you know, the game is probably about equal, unclear kind of position. Knight e7 is a weird move. I have trouble explaining that. Okay, bishop f3, which is very strange. And other than knight e7, bishop f3, I think the moves made a lot of sense. If you ask me, why did white play bishop f3? I mean, I guess he's making d5 less palatable. I don't know. But bishop f3 doesn't make any sense. Okay, and neither does knight e7. Then the game makes sense afterwards. d6 I agree with. Queen d2 I agree. Knight d7 I agree. Bishop h6 is okay. Yeah, these moves all make sense to me. Okay, and then Blackburne, like any good player, realized that he was Rufus and Doofus earlier, so he corrected his mistake. And one thing that I tell my students, because I learned it a long time ago, even before I was born I learned it, that's why I'm a grandmaster, learned stuff before I was born, is if you move pawns in chess, you can't move them back. So pawn moves are riskier than piece moves. And I was making fun of bishop f3, But that's why pencils have erasers. Bishop back to e2. Now, if we play pawn to f3, never play f3, you can't put your pawn back on f2. So you better be sure when you move a pawn, that's what you want to do. Now, bishop e2 makes a lot of sense because white wants to play f4, and black encouraged that with his knight e5 move. So I really like white's position now. f6, never play f6. f4, obviously. Okay, rook d1, and white's position looks totally normal, and I would say, other than bishop f3 earlier, white's play is very good. Okay, sort of modern even. And we didn't see positions like this a lot in the 1800s. We saw, we'll see it later. Don't worry, we'll see it. Okay, c6, never move pawns. Bishop c4 is a good move. Bishop d7. Okay, now Blackburne, sort of like Popeye, had all he can't stands no more. He positionally outplaying Steinitz, and any super grandmaster would not have black in this position. And one of the reasons is people learned how to play chess better by looking at these other games, and they said, well, this is no good. So we started playing better. And instead of Blackburne, like a current grandmaster, a modern grandmaster, building up a winning position slowly, Magnus Carlsen would dream of having white in this position. He's Blackburne, so it's got to... Exactly. Wait, you're here very early. Oh, wait, you're done at 7?
I got off at 6 today.
Wow.
It still took an hour and a half to get here.
Solid. Okay.
Relax.
I'll rewind the lecture. We have a new person walk in, if you can call him a person, and he's more of a musician than a person. Okay, you know what his favorite instrument is? Sorry. Okay. Anyway, we're talking about Joseph Henry Blackburne, your favorite player. And he's from England, and this is great players of the past. In fact, they forgot at home, so it's good you showed up. Cool. And we're looking at some of his games, and we talked about him. This is game 3. His first 2 games were against unknown people. This is against Steinitz, who's not unknown. Okay. And now, as I said before you walked in, Blackburne went rawr because he's Blackburne. He can't play like king h1. Okay. So he played bishop f7, which is a little weird, but he did it for a reason. Okay. So, I mean, obviously this knight's like terrible, and this is a great bishop. But okay, he's trying to get at the black king, so he's getting rid of the stuff here, the black king. And then rawr, f5. Okay, he can't help it. Now, f5 reminds me of the famous game between Lasker and Capablanca from New York 24, which I'm sure you guys were all thinking of. You know, in the exchange Rui? Yeah. They're all nodding. No, they're not nodding. Okay, and then black played knight c8. Very strange move. e5. And what's funny is this e5 idea I thought was invented about 70 years later, but in reverse. This is actually a very common idea if you play e5 and then f5. So the reason to play e5 and then f5 in similar positions is that when black takes on e5, he can't put anything on e5. So in this position, you could imagine if you could cheat, you would play knight e5. That'd be good. And then your knight stays on e5 forever. There's no pawn can attack it. So what a lot of GMs do in like Benoni type positions is they play e5, and when you take with the pawn, then they play f5, and you can't put a knight on e5 because your pawn's there. Well, he did it the other way around. I haven't seen that before. And basically, Blackburne can't help himself. He has to play for mate. Now, he didn't do it for like 12 moves, so you got to give him credit. But okay, when your opponent's pieces are here, and you play for mate, you're often successful even when you shouldn't be. Okay, and then white's pieces are pretty good. And of course, the computer and a grandmaster today, they would be salivating. Okay, that's why we have Kleenex all over them. Because they would see this e6 square. Okay, and you see how the knight could go to e6, right? Well, we want our other knights also go to e6. So how would we accomplish that? How can we get this knight to e6? He does it with his finger. I like that. Right. So, I mean, any grandmaster today, this would be like this is a normal procedure. Yeah. Because the e6 square is unbelievably weak. And the knight can go there. And then, man, that's not good for black. Because black's got to do something. Not sure what exactly. Anyway, this is the 1880s. They didn't do that then. They played e5. Rawr. Okay. So he played f takes. I assumed the idea, without doing any analysis, is if you take this way, I win. That seems to win a queen. because your bishop's pinned. Yeah. Okay, so he analyzed that. If you don't take on e5, then I'm betting on white. So he has to play fe5. Okay. And then he plays knight e6 check. He has to take it. And Blackburne thought, like, these are black's pieces, and I have the open f file, and my queen, and my knight, and my passed e-pawn. I should be victorious. Which isn't true, but it sounds good. Okay, rook e7, queen g5. And in this position, Steinitz played queen e8 double question mark. I don't really blame him for not playing the right move. But basically, if you look at games from the 1800s and one guy's crushing the other guy, which is very likely, most of the time it's because the guy doesn't move his pieces out. So, of course, Steinitz, even though being the world champion, still didn't move his pieces out. He showed us. So how do we get these pieces out? What's the only move that black can play? You just move them out. Knight b6, yeah. And I think the computer says it's equal, or, white's down a pawn, and, black's rook is still on a8. But after knight b6, the d pawn's protected, the knight's coming into the game, we can get our rook out later. Queen e8's not good. Rook d3, because he wants to play rook h3, and or rook f3. So rook g3 is a really nice move because he's getting his rook into the attack. Rover, rook lift, etc. Okay, rook takes e6, greedy as always. Rook h3. And here, he also blundered, although he might be losing. Yeah, now white's not kidding now. Before white was kidding. Now white is hardly kidding at all. Okay? And in the 1800s, they weren't known for brilliant defense. That wasn't the specialty of the day. And Steinitz, just hung mate here. So I can't imagine any modern grandmaster making this move because it's just an obvious mate for grandmaster. But okay, 1883, it wasn't so obvious, I guess. Now this is like a puzzle on tactics train or something. So he blundered with queen e7. And now, I kept saying how easy it was, so let's ask the audience. White has mate in 3, and he played it. Maybe he announced it. I think he played it. And yeah, usually when somebody's winning, in 25 moves, and it's the 1800s, you can point to things that don't make a lot of sense, which would be that. In fact, if the black knight was on b6, white would have nothing. And the thing is, it's hard to learn tactics nowadays by looking at super GM games because they don't allow that. If you want to learn tactics, it's either a made-up position, it's one of your games, and you guys are missing the tactics, you can learn, or it's a game played at the lower levels and then missing tactics. So we have to look at games from 150 years ago to learn these tactics when the players are good. And then, if you see it 1,000 times, it doesn't happen anymore. It happens with you guys, but it doesn't happen, when Carlson's playing Kramnik, they already saw all these games, so it's too easy for them. It's still not easy for you guys because you guys aren't super grandmasters yet. And this is 2 tactics in 1. There's a back rank issue because the rook can't, and the other issue is overworked. There's 2 threats, and one of black's pieces is defending them both.
Queen h6.
Queen h6. Obviously, frankly, if king h8, then this is pretty good.
Yeah.
That's okay. So king g8 was played. Yeah, and now the black queen is overworked. It's doing too much.
Right, so you still do
Right, because basically if this queen was off the board, let's take it off the board, you have queen f8 mate, rook f8 mate, and queen h7 mate. So the black queen is it's working hard over there. Okay? So a grandmaster today wouldn't play queen e7 because this is too easy to see. They would, try to stop mate some other way, or they would resign. Problem with h5 is rook takes h5. So maybe we have to go back and play knight b6. So this trick doesn't happen. Okay, and then the mate is, you guys were all saying it.
So, rook f8.
the.
Yeah, you played rook f8, and there's only one legal move, and then mate. So Blackburne did beat unknown players, but he also beat the reigning world champion. Okay, and you could say like it wasn't good, but I don't think you guys did that at home. I beat a world champion, but he wasn't reigning. Let's think it's reigning now. And also, it was in a simul. I have some other excuses too, but yeah. Okay, and last but not least, definitely not least, was against Henry Bird. This is a very funny game. This is my favorite of the four. That's why I saved it for the end. Now, if you didn't know this, you're going to learn it right now. Based on White's name, only based on his name, what did he play on move 1?
F4.
Man, some people are paying attention in this class. That's because that's the Bird. That's him. And Bird was a British player like Blackburne. Bird wasn't as good. Blackburne and Bird actually played a lot for fun and tournaments. They played each other a lot. And Blackburne claimed that they had this position like after move 10 a lot. Okay, now Blackburne liked to play a little wild and crazy. So you know what he played on move 1? Played a gambit. What did he do? It's a gambit.
E5.
Yeah, E5. Fromm's gambit. Right. And after it takes, everybody plays D6, including Blackburne. I play knight C6 because I learned that 20 years ago. And then my opponent's like, what? Knight C6? In fact, I played knight C6 against Ginger GM. I think I got crushed. I'm pretty sure that guy got destroyed. Anyway, if you don't want to play a Fromm's gambit, what else can you play to transpose into another opening?
D5?
I mean, for White here. Yeah, it's White's move.
Oh, E4.
Yeah, E4, and that's called?
King's Gambit.
Right. And I had a game with a 1950 player once. I had 5 out of 5, and he had 4.5 out of 5, and he was the only 4.5, so we played him round 6. And our game went F4, E5. He played E4, so I played D5 for symmetry reasons. And then he took, and I played C6, and he played the losing move. So I had 5 out of 5, and in round 6, I was winning on move 4 with black. It's a good reason. What reasonable-looking move here for White loses by force? That's what he played.
Knight F3.
No, knight F3.
F takes C5.
Now you're talking. Yeah, F takes E5 loses. He played it. And I played.
Queen H4.
I did. Then he was unhappy. Now I'm winning. And if G3, I win his rook, and he did play G3. So King E2 is even worse. Then you get checkmated. Okay, so, ridiculous. Okay, now, in some of the notes I read to the game on the internet, they said Bird didn't like to play E4 in this position because he was playing Bird's opening. That would be the King's Gambit. So I'm like, all right. I don't know if that's true. That'd be funny if it was true. Like, I'm playing an opening named after me, and then I could transpose to another opening. I wouldn't do that. I'd play my opening. Okay, so D6. And in this position, every game I've ever seen in my life, Black plays G5 with the idea of G4. And Blackburn played Knight F6. I don't know that move. So, I mean, it's just a pawn sacrifice. And after D4, Blackburn showed who Blackburn was. It wasn't his opponent. He played the craziest move ever. Again, it's like the beginners are playing, except he sees a lot of tactics. Knight G4. Wow. Knight G4. All right. Yeah. He claimed that he and Bird played this a lot, like this position. Okay, now Bird played a move I'd never think of, and I teach my students not to do this. Lower-rated players like to attack things. Okay, it's like, ooh, it's shiny. So they, Okay, now if I was White, I would develop my pieces. I would play maybe E4, maybe G3, something to stop the attack. He played an aggressive move, Bishop G5. And obviously, if in the main lines of the opening, Black's playing G5, G4, Black really wants to push his pawns. This made the game very interesting. And after F6, Black's actually better now, because we just keep pushing our pawns. It's very hard for White to do anything about that, because that Bishop G3 doesn't look good. I can take it and play Queen D6. I mean, I don't like that. I mean, I like it for Black. I don't like it for White. That's very suspicious. Okay, so he played Bishop F2. And again, I don't know why I'm moving my Bishop to F2 when he can just take it. So that's, yeah. So, I mean, this is sort of silly play from White, but good play from Black. Okay, Knight H4, F5 with a discovered attack on the knight. G3, F4. You don't see games like this today at the top level. Yeah. And these were, if you took the 5 best players in Britain, here's 2 of them. So there you go. And actually, it's funny. I can make fun of the British team, because why not? I'd make fun of Simon Williams, make fun of other guys. So, as you all know, just yesterday, the European Team Championship ended. And a couple funny things happened. England was ranked 4th by rating, and they did not do well. They came in like 12th or 16th, something really bad. And Nigel Short wrote some funny stuff about that, actually. Also funny was the Azerbaijan team that won. There was suspicious activity in the last round. Possibly coaches were illegally agreeing to draws for the players, and they wrote about it on the internet. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but probably nothing. Also, when they did agree to the draws, if they did do that, those positions were drawn. And Azerbaijan might have won a game that was agreed drawn, like maybe, between Nadic and Ponomarev, I think. But that means Azerbaijan would have won more. Like they won. So agreeing to a draw when you're winning, when you win the tournament, that's nothing wrong with that. And the argument was it hurt other teams. Like if Azerbaijan had won that game, then some other team would have got the bronze. So, okay. But, I mean, it wasn't like they agreed to a draw before the match. They played like 5 hours and supposedly the coaches agreed to a draw in drawn positions. So even if there was incredible amounts of cheating, it didn't really affect anything. Okay, it wasn't like, let's lose 4-0 before the match. Now that's cheating. Okay. For example, when Russia, or was it the USSR, played Poland in the last round of the Olympiad, now that was cheating. Okay, that was 4-0. That was throwing the match 4-0 because they were told to. And this happened in many Olympiads. When the Soviet Union had a stranglehold on Eastern Europe, cheating going on. Okay. So yeah, like when there's cheating. Okay. Anyway, back to the non-cheating game. I don't think they were cheating this game. Okay, F4, Queen D3, which is the best move. Castles, which is also the best move. Queen B3 check, terrible. Okay, so in this position, my engine, of course, says it's equal. And only gives one move that equalizes. So you can make fun of the players, but if you want to, you have to find the moves that are good. What's the only good move here for white? I think a lot of grandmasters today would play it. I think it's a reasonable looking move. Queen B3 check doesn't make a lot of sense, because when black moves his king, why did white do that? Why is the queen on B3? It's not really a good square. Undefends the D4 pawn. But anyway, you can see that black isn't kidding, here. So you got to do something about that. You thought black was kidding, but he's not. Defense. No defense. They're afraid to say.
King G1?
King G1 was played, but he played Queen B3 check first. The engine prefers King E1. Because the king is pretty safe over here. Over here, he didn't turn out to be safe. Here he's much safer because the pawn's on E2, and the king can go to the queen side if necessary. Here, he's just a sitting duck. He got crushed over there. Now, the check was really bad because he undefended the D pawn for no reason. The queen's worse on the queen's much better on D3. Controls all these squares. Yeah, so that's here. It's like as far away from the king as possible. Okay, now white's in trouble. He did play King G1, and then he got punished. Queen F6, which has a threat which it didn't have if the queen was on D3. So that gains a tempo. And then you make a battery. So Queen B3, man, not good. Okay, Bishop G2, ignoring everything. F takes G3 with subtle threats. Yeah, now you can see the king is much safer on E1. Because if somebody did play Queen F2 check, you could still run away. Yeah, here you're just trapped. Okay, H takes G3. Now, again, there's notes to the game by Blackburne. I want to point this out. I think a lot of people here would play Queen takes D4 check without thinking. And Blackburne writes that his move is better than Queen takes D4, which I don't necessarily agree with. He might be right. But that's not my point, is that a lot of people, when they see they take a pawn with check and it's good, a good player looks and tries to find a better move. I'm not saying it was a better move, but it just shows he's a good player. He sees Queen D4 and still doesn't do it. And actually today, in the Title Tuesday, where we were making fun of Hikaru earlier because, why not? Got to make fun of somebody. Couldn't make fun of Carlsen, who's winning all his games. I'm not going to make fun of him. Hikaru was playing, and he was winning, and he got to an ending with 2 pieces versus a rook. And then the guy gave up his rook for a minor piece because he had to, and then Hikaru would be up a piece. And instead of doing that, Hikaru thought a while and made a better move, where he still wins the rook for a piece, but it's much better. And then the guy just instantly resigned. And then Amon Hamilton, who was doing commentary, is like, a good player always does that. When they see the winning move, they just look, even though it's like a blitz game, 3-minute game, he still finds a better move. So even though queen takes d4 may be better than f takes g3, that's not even the point. The point is he saw queen takes d4 check, and he said, wait a minute, what else can I do? Then after this move, man, we got some threats over here. It was serious. So maybe it was better. Man, that's a pretty good move. Maybe I changed my mind on the subject. Okay, so he took queen f2 check, obviously. And then on the internet, some guy wrote that black missed mate in 1 here with bishop g3 mate. And then somebody pointed out that queens move sideways. So black missed nothing. Okay, unfortunately for white, but fortunately for our audience, black made the best move here. And again, while you guys are thinking, I want to give my commercial for the people at home. A lot of the players 100, 150 years ago who were top 10, top 20 in the world, they played a lot of suspicious games. Their opening play wasn't very good. They blundered a lot. But they were very strong players because of things like this. Things that, I mean, players today who are A players, experts, masters, they don't see these things. And when they happen, they might see them. But obviously, if you do a puzzle, you might see it. But when you're playing a game, you have to see this beforehand. You can't be like, oh, that combination Morphy played, when I saw it in the puzzle contest, I solved it. Okay, he's not doing a puzzle contest. He's playing a game. He has to see it before it happens. Okay, and nobody tells him there's mate in 3, mate in 2, there's a win. Okay, but when you're in the class, you're doing on the internet, you're using your computer to cheat, then it's really easy to solve. Then it's no problem. Right? No problem. You with the right answer.
Bishop e6.
Oh, I said the right answer and you failed miserably.
Oh, I know. Rook f3.
Now you're talking. That's why she owns the chess center. Owned. After bishop e6, which I'm sure wins, I think I could play d5. Well, then you would take it. Man. Then I play queen c3 check, then we agree to a draw. Bishop e6 should win in the long run, but it doesn't really work now. But yeah, Karen with her rook f3. Bam.
Oh yeah, because the pawn blockades the...
Everything, whatever you take with block. Yeah, now we're threatening bishop g3 mate. If you take with the bishop, the knight, well, take with the bishop, you're cheating because that's pinned. Take with the pawn or the knight, bishop g3 is still mate. If you don't take my rook, bishop g3 is mate. If you move your rook away, so you have king h1, I take with the queen, and then I play queen h2 mate. I think the only move that's like stops mate in 1 is like queen g8 or queen takes rook. Yeah. I would guess the computer announces mate here, that you can't even stop mate. Let's see if I'm right. Yep, it's mate. Yeah. I didn't see knight g6 check, I must admit. Oh, I didn't see knight f5 either, defending g3. Then you play rook takes h5, threatening rook h5 mate, which has no defense. Wow. There's 0 moves to stop rook h5. You gotta give your queen away. And then rook h5 mate anyway. Wow. Yeah, rook f3. Now, bishop e6, the second best move. Very good. That's why you're in the corner.
Story of my life.
Yeah, let's see. Yeah, rook f3. Well, Karen's always sacking all her pieces, so rook f3 is like, it's like a baby smile. It's so easy. Yeah. Yeah. Very simple. So what I like about this game is obviously White's play was very strange. He moved his queen to a bad square. He made a lot of king moves, and he put his knight on the side and his other pieces. But Black didn't need all his pieces this time. He just needed these 3. That was enough. Yeah, but rook f3 is really nice. And obviously, from my point of view, when he played the move f takes g3 here, he saw rook f3. Like he saw after takes here, here, here. That's why he played fg3. If he didn't see that, he probably would have played queen takes d4 check. Yeah. And what's this called? What's that tactic called? Rook f3. Ooh, I don't think you guys are going to get that. That's too hard for you guys.
Interference?
That's right. Wow. What? Yeah, you're interfering with the queen. Yeah, interference. Very nice. So, yeah. It seems like we fixed this because, you know, like I told you beforehand. but I didn't.
I know some stuff.
Yeah, that's right. So Joseph Henry Blackburn, I guess in those days they all had three names. Maybe they're all serial killers. I don't know. But he was not the best player in the world, but he was very interesting. And unlike a lot of players of the day who died in their 30s and 40s, he lived into his 80s and he kept playing chess. He played chess in his 60s and 70s. He wasn't kidding. And as one of our great members has explained, it reminds him of Korchnoi, right? Top player in the world, not quite world champion, and played for a million years. Played 55 years, man. That's a long career. So don't forget Joseph Henry Blackburn. And I was telling them before the class, but you weren't here and you probably weren't listening. There's a guy in Ann Arbor. I won't say his name, but it's Ray Garrison, and he's a Class A player, and he's 6'6", so he stands out. He actually owned a chess store before my friend bought it from him. And then we owned it. Well, my friend did. And the name of his company, his chess company, was Blackburn's Ghost. So if you're not a chess player, even if you are a chess player, that's not easy to get. Yeah. And so Blackburn had his followers. I'm not sure who they were. And unlike every other player at that time, Blackburn was an author. He wrote about his games and annotated a lot of them. And I think in the late 1800s, like in the 90s, he published like hundreds of his games annotated. And most people, I won. But he actually was interested in his games and looked at them. And looking at Blackburn's games, there's many other famous ones. You can go on the internet and look for some other games he won that were interesting. Maybe not at the highest levels, maybe not. But he saw a lot. He played very tactical and tricky. And unlike all the other grandmasters I show from the 1800s, he also won with black. I showed you more than one game he won with black. Because a lot of them would play e4 and sack other pieces and mate you, like Morphy would do. But he also won with black. And so Blackburn didn't really care what color he had. He wanted to play interesting chess and would sacrifice. And he learned chess at a very late age and tried to play like the players of the time, which was to sack everything. But even though his results weren't the best against Steinitz and Lasker, he still beat them because you play him enough, you'll beat somebody, right? Maybe. Yeah. Of course, the exceptions nowadays, the famous exceptions, if you play somebody enough, you'll beat them, is Shirov and Kasparov. Shirov never beat Kasparov. They played a lot. They played like 30 games, and Shirov never won one. And there was another one where both players are like 27, 20, one guy never won.
Nakamura never beat Magnus.
Nakamura never beat Magnus until he did. Right, but Shirov's never going to beat Kasparov, so that's the end of that. Yeah. Well, it's unfortunate. Similar styles, but Kasparov's better. Like dissimilar styles, so you can win in your style. Yeah. I mean, Karpov beat Kasparov 100 times. So, yeah. So anyway, go Blackburn and go Blackburn's Ghost. All right. Until next time. And according to this will be put up immediately now because he didn't. Nobody knows. This will be put up in 5 seconds. No. All right. And then see you guys next time with more great players of the past, endgame lectures, and our Sunday lectures, which are just general topics. Right? Those are your favorite, even the ones you don't go to. All right. See you next time. As I like to say, half point and full point bye.